Sector 506 Hougang Avenue 8 are undergoing mandatory swab tests as Singapore reports 30 new community cases today. Cover your mouth and nose. One expert tells the big story everyone should practice respiratory etiquette, especially in lifts. And this couple appearing in the district court today charged with harassing their frontliner neighbours. Welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay. 30 new COVID-19 community cases were reported today, with 8 currently unlinked. The other 22 local cases are linked and 16 had already been quarantined when they were detected. Out of the 10 imported cases confirmed today, 8 are returning Singaporeans or PRs. More details on today's cases will be released later tonight. Meanwhile, yesterday, the Health Ministry reported that a 70-year-old man has died from COVID-19 complications. He had been linked to the Tan Tock Seng hospital cluster. He had not been vaccinated against the virus. Well, here's an update on the Changi Airport cluster, the largest active one here, with 100 cases as of yesterday. According to the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore and Changi Airport Group, phylogenetic testing results for an initial batch of positive airport workers were found to be similar and of the B1617 variant, this indicating that they originated from a common source. Now, both agencies said the initial transmission could have occurred through an airport worker who was assisting a family from South Asia. Meanwhile, out of the near 19,000 airport workers swabbed, another 10 cases were found in a special testing operation. This brings the total number of infected airport workers to 43 so far. A COVID-19 swabbing exercise is underway at Block 506 Hougang Avenue 8 for all those living there. Now, this comes after several residents tested positive. Earlier today, barricades and chairs were being set up at the void deck. Block 506 has 12 stories and 116 units, and residents will be progressively swabbed floor by floor. Along with Leader of the Opposition and alternate GRC MP Pritam Singh, MP for the ward Gerald Giam was at the block today speaking to residents and staff.
We've spoken to a few residents as well as the shopkeepers of the flats nearby. So there are concerns that because they don't know how many cases there are over here, so they're worried about their own health. But I've assured them that the number of cases is small and they just need to comply with the instructions given by the officers over here and by Ministry of Health. We've told the shop owners also if there's a need to shut down, the officers will instruct them to do so. Until that time, they can just continue operating. We've also told the residents that they should try and stay indoors as much as possible. I've spoken to some who said that they were actually supposed to go to work today, but because when they heard the news, they decided to stay at home to minimize the spread. And I think that's a very responsible thing that they've been doing.
This is the first time an entire block is undergoing a mandatory swab test. Last July, 58 households in a Tampines HDB block were offered testing after 9 cases were found there. Well, here with the latest on what's going on at the Hougang block is multimedia correspondent Yo Sam Jo. He's at Block 506. Hello, Sam Jo. So swabbing has been going on since around 1 p.m. today. The exercise will happen today and tomorrow. So what have you observed? Is it a steady stream of residents getting their tests?
That's right, Olivia. Well, as you can see behind me, the queues of residents, getting in line to get swabbed have pretty much slowed down, just like the rain. And news only broke last night, and some of them may be at work, and they're only testing the lower 6 levels of this block, which has 12 floors today. So that might explain why there are not a lot of people here at the moment. But swabbing continues until 8 p.m. today and resumes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So we can definitely expect more people to show up, especially those from the higher 6 stories of the block. We spoke to some residents about the process. Now, many of them, of course, came out dabbing their eyes with tissue, after the swab, and they said that they got an SMS from the Ministry of Health informing them of the mandatory swab test, and a second SMS which specified the appointment time. So every resident apparently is given an appointment time for them to come down so that there won't be too much bunching up at the station here. Now, some have their appointments tomorrow, but requested to be swabbed earlier and were allowed to do so because, as you can see, it's not so crowded here today. They also shared more about how they are feeling about the entire situation, and I managed to speak to some of them. So let's take a look at what they have to say.
My sister received a message from, I don't know where, but I didn't receive the message, but she told me that the residents in this block need to do a swab test. So they asked my sister to come down to do also. Her appointment is tomorrow, but since today no queue, so I have been working from home for 3 weeks, so I didn't go out much. So I think I'm still safe, so just staying at home. Yeah, so not so worried about that.
My friends actually sent me a link from the Straits Times telling me that, because he was telling me, oh, this is your blog. So I'm like, yeah, what's wrong? So when I read the article, I was like, okay, what's going on? Well, I'm worried. I was worried.
Why?
Because I've got my parents who's elderly and I got a son who's only 5 months. So I'm just afraid that, this virus might, now they say it's airborne and stuff. So I'm just afraid for both my parents and my son. Hope there's no one got the COVID. Like, it's all good for everyone. Do not want anyone to get sick and stuff, because right now it's really hard time for everybody.
Starting is a little bit worried because I feel that virus is so near to me now. Yeah. So we take this swab test is just give an assurance for ourselves. I think I'm not worried now because I still can feel myself is healthy and I still got my taste, my smell is all still good.
Right, so Samjo, as we are hearing, what some of the residents at this block are going through, what measures are being done throughout Block 506?
Well, Olivia, I know you can't see a lot going on behind me right now, mainly because, the entire area has pretty much been barricaded, with yellow barricades, steel barricades, and covered in white tarp. So we haven't been able to film much inside, except apart from, the setting up process earlier. But you must know a lot of effort has gone into the swabbing station run by, of course, staff members from the Health Promotion Board. The makeshift booth set up behind me were all set up just this morning. And inside, I was told by one of the staff members that there is, of course, a registration booth and 4 separate swabbing booths inside to cope with, the number of people here. Mind you, there are about 120 households in this block, so that's a lot of people to get through. And they on the floor, when you peek in, you can see yellow tape being used as makeshift arrows, to kind of direct people and show them where to go next. You also have designated entry and exit points. In fact, just behind me here is the entry point. Elderly residents, I've noticed, have been given priority to enter first and jump the queue so that they don't have to wait for too long. You also see safe distancing ambassadors patrolling up and down the block. And some medics on standby as well, just in case anything happens. And earlier, of course, Aljunied GRC MPs Pritam Singh and Gerald Giam were here to talk to residents and those working here. Mr. Giam shared that the town council has cleaned the entire block, including high-touch surfaces. And a second round of cleaning will take place to ensure that, the entire place is thoroughly disinfected. And speaking of town council workers, we earlier also saw, just this afternoon, Aljunied Hougang Town Council staff members getting swabbed this afternoon. We could see them wearing their Aljunied Hougang Town Council polo tees, which are super recognizable from afar. So it's pretty much, a very organized, well-organized, all hands on deck kind of approach here that we are seeing today, on the bit to make sure that cases here at this block are pretty much contained. And here's hoping that the results will not be too worrying. Back to you in the studio, Olivia.
Indeed. Well, Well, thank you very much, Sam Joe. That was multimedia correspondent Yo Sam Joe with an update on the swabbing exercise currently happening right now at Block 506 Hougang Avenue 8. Now, whether it's a block of flats or a workplace, experts say that when cases emerge, it's important for as many people as possible to be swabbed, even if they aren't experiencing symptoms. Here's what Professor Teo Yik Ying of the Swee Hock School of Public Health told us.
So my advice to people who are either living in such a block or working in an environment where a cluster has developed is to come forward and get yourself tested. This will provide the peace of mind to yourself, your family, your colleagues, that you remain free from infection. The testing itself literally takes a few seconds to complete, and the whole process from registration to the completion of the test actually takes about less than 10 minutes. So the results of the testing will usually be out the next day, or for some, perhaps a 2-day wait. However, a negative test does give you that peace of mind. But I talk about the negative test, and it's important to also highlight that even when you get a negative test, you should continue to monitor your health for the next 2 weeks or 14 days, because we have seen several cases where the first test was negative. Some of them even had a second test, and the second test was also negative, but subsequently they became positive. So the important thing here is really to stay calm, come forward to be tested, monitor your own health for 14 days, minimize any unnecessary outdoor movement beyond the absolutely necessary. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that the main method for COVID-19 transmission is really through droplets and surfaces. So when it comes to a HDB block, lifts will be a place where I would classify as a higher risk location, be it through aerosols, droplets, or contact surfaces. And after all, I think in lifts, people are packed closer together and it is an enclosed environment. And in fact, in lifts, this is really where I would say we need to be very conscious about respiratory etiquette, which basically means that how do we cough and sneeze in such an enclosed, confined location. So covering your mouth when you sneeze, preferably with your arm sleeve like this, or if really desperate with your hands, it's something we should be practicing. And of course, if you cover with your hands, make sure you wash your hands or disinfect your hands after you do that. I would once again highlight the risk of being infected when air is circulating freely, where it is much more open, like corridors between flats. That risk is extremely small. And we can make that very small risk even smaller by what we do and practice when it comes to face mask wearing, hand hygiene, how we sneeze and how we cough.
Moving on to the Changi prison cluster, which presently has 8 cases. More inmates, prison staff and vendors from areas not affected by the cluster will undergo COVID-19 tests as a precaution. Changi prison complex consists of 2 large sections called Cluster A and Cluster B, and each contains 5 institutions. Now, this precautionary testing is being done despite no evidence that COVID-19 has spread beyond those who work at the prison kitchen at Institution A5 in Cluster A. That's where a COVID cluster surfaced last weekend. From this week until the end of June, taxi and private hire car drivers will receive daily cash support of $25 per vehicle. Transport Minister S. Iswaran said this is a response to a significant drop in ridership during the current period of heightened alert.
So this will mean it's an additional $300 per month per vehicle, which, or for a single shift driver, that will be the additional assistance he or she gets. That amount of additional assistance will be provided from the 16th of May, that is last Sunday, through till the end of June. So essentially covering the phase 2 heightened alert period and allowing also for some coverage beyond, and we'll see how the situation evolves from there. This enhancement will cost the government about $27 million.
About 56,000 drivers are expected to benefit from this top-up to the COVID-19 Driver Relief Fund. Those eligible will automatically receive the top-up through their operators. And as ridership is likely to take some time to recover, the government is also looking into further extending these payments beyond June. Separately, Mr. Iswaran added that from this Sunday, the grace period for parking at HDB and URA car parks will be increased from 10 minutes to 20.
With the onset of COVID, many drivers have also moved on to take additional jobs as in delivery of, for example, delivery jobs to supplement their income. This pertains to both our taxi drivers and also our PHC drivers. And we expect the demand for such delivery services to increase during this phase of heightened alert, since dining in is now not allowed.
In other local headlines, a couple has been charged with harassing their frontliner neighbours, one of whom is a nurse at Sengkang General Hospital. Lim Sok Lei and Chiang Eng Hock had allegedly made insulting remarks, shouting phrases like COVID spreader and virus family at the alleged victims. They're also accused of spraying disinfectant in their direction. Lim is being remanded at the Institute of Mental Health and will be back in court on June the 4th. Chiang will return to court on June 18th. Former radio DJ and 12 Cupcakes co-founder Daniel Ong has been fined $65,000 for failing to prevent the company from underpaying its foreign workers. He pleaded guilty to 10 charges under the Employment of Foreign Manpower Act, while another 14 charges were considered during sentencing. Co-founder and Ong's ex-wife Jamie Chiu was fined the same amount in March after she pleaded guilty to 10 similar charges. And overseas, a ceasefire in Gaza officially came into force early this morning. Mediated by Egypt, the truce is after nearly 2 weeks of violence between Israel and Hamas that left over 230 people dead. But tensions remain, with each side saying it stood ready to retaliate against any truce violations by the other. US President Joe Biden has signed the Covid-19 Hate Crimes Act into law, which aims to combat a wave of hate crimes, most prominently against Asian Americans. The act creates hate crime units in law enforcement agencies, as well as mandates expedited investigations of hate crimes. And in a rare show of bipartisanship, the act cleared the Senate with a 94-1 vote and passed overwhelmingly in the House. Before I go, our colleagues at Life have restarted their stay-home guide to help you get through long days at home. From Mondays to Thursdays, there will be 3 recommendations daily on their top entertainment, arts and cultural picks that can be enjoyed online. Plus, every Monday and Wednesday, there will be reviews of takeaway and food delivery. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, ST Food online editor Heidi Koo shares easy-to-follow recipes for some comfort food like Korean-style chicken ginseng soup, as you can see here. Go to this website for Life's stay-home guide. And of course, visit straitstimes.com for more news and videos. Subscribe as well to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay. Have a good weekend and do take care.